The capture. The jungle was dark and alive. Strange trees stood tall, their trunks glowing softly in shades of blue and green. The air was thick, and small alien insects buzzed around like tiny sparks in the night. Somewhere in the distance, a deep growl echoed, a creature hunting for food. Captain Raynor moved slowly, his boots making no sound on the soft alien ground. His armor was scratched, his helmet cracked, and his gun almost out of power. His face was tired, his eyes sharp. He was alone now. His team was gone, lost to this deadly planet. But Raynor was not ready to die. Not yet. Suddenly, a sound came from the bushes ahead. Raynor stopped. His finger moved to the trigger. His heart beat faster. The bushes shook again. Something was there. Something big. Before Raynor could aim, a tall figure jumped out from the shadows. She moved like a flash, faster than any human. Her skin was bronze, shining under the alien sky. Her muscles were strong, her body built for battle. She was not human. She was Amazonian, a female warrior from a race feared across the galaxy. Raynor barely blocked her first attack. Her blade, sharp and black, cut through the air, missing his neck by inches. Raynor stepped back, but she was already there, her fist slamming into his chest, sending him crashing into a tree. His armor cracked more, pain shooting through his ribs. The Amazon stood tall, her eyes burning with anger. Her dark hair moved in the wind like a wild creature. She did not speak. Her face said everything. To her, Raynor was nothing, just another weak human. Raynor knew he couldn't match her strength. No human could. But humans had something else. Their mind. Raynor raised his arm, and the small device on his wrist glowed red. A sharp electric burst shot out, hitting the Amazon in the chest. She screamed, her body shaking as the energy surged through her. The Amazon fell to her knees, her hands shaking, her breath heavy. Raynor stood over her, breathing hard, his gun pointed at her head. But he did not pull the trigger. "You are my prisoner now," Raynor said. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt unsure. The Amazon lifted her head slowly. Her fierce eyes locked onto his. Even in chains, even on her knees, her eyes were full of fire. She was not afraid. Not of him. Not of death. Raynor pulled a metal collar from his belt. It was a control collar, made for strong aliens like her. He placed it around her neck. The collar locked with a small click. A soft blue light glowed on it. If she tried to run, the collar would send pain through her body. If she attacked him, it would do the same. But even with the collar, Raynor felt no victory. There was something in her eyes. A question. A challenge. Who was really the prisoner here? "Move," Raynor said, his voice low. The Amazon stood, her movements slow but full of strength. She was taller than him, her body built like a living weapon. Chains or not, she was dangerous. Raynor knew it. As they walked through the dark jungle, Raynor kept his gun ready. The Amazon walked beside him, silent but watching. Every step she took was graceful, like a hunter moving through her land. Every step Raynor took felt heavier, like a soldier walking into unknown danger. "Why didn't you kill me?" Raynor asked, his voice breaking the silence. The Amazon didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the path ahead. For her, answers were not given easily. The jungle around them was alive with strange sounds. Growls, screeches, whispers of creatures unseen. Raynor knew they had to find shelter soon, but there was no safety on this planet. Not for him, not for her. With every step, Raynor felt the weight of the collar in his hand. He had captured her. She was his prisoner, but in his heart, a question grew stronger. Had he really won, or had he started something he could never control? The Amazon walked beside him, silent, dangerous, and proud. A prisoner today, but what would she become tomorrow? As they disappeared into the shadows of the jungle, the soft blue light of her collar glowed in the dark, like a small star in the middle of a deep, endless sky. The journey begins. The night sky above the alien jungle was a strange mix of purple and black. 2 moons hung low, their soft light making the trees look even taller, their shadows stretching far across the ground. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of wet earth and strange plants that moved even when there was no wind. Raynor walked ahead, his steps careful. The soft glow of his broken helmet light flickered on and off. His armor, already cracked from the fight, felt heavier with every step. His muscles ached, his breath came slow, but his hand never left the gun hanging at his side. Behind him, the Amazon followed, silent, strong, and always watching. The metal collar around her neck hummed softly, a small reminder that even a warrior like her was no longer free. Yet she walked without fear, her chin high, her eyes burning with silent anger. Every step she took was controlled, graceful, like a predator stalking prey. Except she was the one in chains. Raynor glanced back at her every few minutes, expecting her to attack. Even with the collar, even after the shock that dropped her to her knees, he didn't trust her. How could he? Amazons were legends, warriors from a race that saw fear as weakness and death as honor. "You're walking too slow," Raynor said, his voice flat. The Amazon didn't answer. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were always moving, studying the jungle, searching for threats, or maybe for a chance to escape. Raynor stopped at a wide tree with a trunk so thick it would take 10 men holding hands to circle it. He placed his hand on the rough bark and let out a tired breath. His water supply was low. Food was even lower. The emergency beacon on his suit was dead. There was no signal, no hope of rescue. "How long will you keep me prisoner?" the Amazon asked suddenly. Her voice was deeper than most human women, but there was something smooth in it too, like a storm hiding behind calm clouds. Raynor turned to face her. Even with dirt on her skin and dried blood on her arm, she stood like a queen, unbroken and proud. "Until I find a way off this planet," Raynor said, "or until one of us dies." The Amazon's mouth curled into a small smile, not friendly, but mocking. "Humans never last long here. You will die first." Raynor's fingers twitched on his gun, but he didn't raise it. "If I die, that collar will keep you here until your bones turn to dust." The smile disappeared. Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. They moved again, deeper into the jungle where the trees grew closer together, their branches twisting like grasping hands. Strange sounds filled the air, distant screeches, the rustle of something big moving just out of sight. Raynor's shoulders tensed with every step. Even after days on this planet, the noises still felt wrong, like the whole place was alive and angry. Suddenly, the Amazon stopped, her head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing. Raynor froze. He knew that look. It was the same look soldiers gave when they smelled danger in the air. A feeling, a whisper, something invisible but real. "What is it?" Raynor whispered. The Amazon didn't answer. She raised one hand, fingers curled slightly, as if feeling the air itself. Her sharp eyes moved slowly across the trees, past the glowing plants and dark vines. "Run," she said. Raynor didn't ask why. He turned and ran, and the Amazon followed, her steps light and fast, his heavier and slower. Behind them, the jungle exploded with noise. Something huge crashed through the trees, its roar shaking the ground under their feet. Raynor ran harder, branches whipping against his face, roots grabbing at his boots. The Amazon moved beside him, her breath steady, her body flowing like water through the obstacles. Even with the collar, even in chains, she was faster than him. The roar grew louder, closer. Something was hunting them. They burst into a small clearing. Before Raynor could think, the ground gave way beneath them. They fell, sliding down a steep, muddy slope, crashing into roots and rocks until they hit the bottom with a hard, painful thud. Raynor groaned, pain shooting through his side. He rolled onto his back, blinking up at the sky far above. The Amazon landed beside him, breathing hard but already sitting up, her hands moving to check her body for injuries. The air was different down here, warmer, thicker, with a faint metallic taste. The walls around them were smooth stone, marked with ancient carvings, symbols neither human nor Amazon. "What is this place?" Raynor asked. The Amazon didn't answer. She stood, her eyes moving over the carvings, her fingers tracing the symbols with strange familiarity. "You know what this is?" Raynor said, pushing himself up. "It's old," she said finally. "Older than my people. Older than yours." Raynor's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that?" The Amazon turned to face him. "Because my mother once told me stories. Stories of the first Amazons. They were not born on our world. They came from somewhere else. Somewhere they were not alone." Raynor felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. Not alone. The Amazon stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. "They came with humans." Raynor's breath caught in his throat. The jungle above roared again, but down here, in this ancient place, a different kind of silence filled the air. A silence full of secrets waiting to wake. "Who are you really?" Raynor asked. The Amazon's smile returned, small, dangerous, and full of mystery. "Your prisoner," she said softly. "For now." But even Raynor knew something much bigger than survival had started. And it began with her. Enemies or something else. The air inside the ancient stone chamber felt heavier, like the weight of thousands of years pressed down on Raynor's chest. The faint light from the glowing moss on the walls gave everything a strange greenish hue. The Amazon stood near the carvings, her fingers tracing old lines and symbols, symbols older than her people, older than even Earth's first steps into space. Raynor leaned against the wall, his breathing slowing after their wild escape. His ribs ached from the fall, and his arm throbbed from where a sharp root had cut through his sleeve. But none of that mattered now. "You said Amazons came with humans," Raynor said, his voice low but firm. "That's impossible. Your people hate us. You've always hated us." The Amazon turned, her dark eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "Hate is taught. My mother's stories were older than hate." Her voice was calm, but Raynor could hear something underneath, something that almost sounded like doubt. It was strange, seeing doubt in a warrior who had nearly killed him hours ago. Raynor pushed himself off the wall, stepping closer. The soft hum of her collar followed her every breath. "Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance?" he asked. The Amazon's jaw tightened. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "I still might." Raynor almost smiled. "Almost. If you wanted me dead, you wouldn't have warned me to run." The Amazon said nothing. Her eyes stayed on the carvings, images of warriors standing side by side, some tall and lean like humans, others powerful and fierce like Amazons. Together, they faced something even larger, something with too many arms and sharp, insect-like bodies. "This is not our fight," she said softly. "Your war, my war, they mean nothing here." Raynor stepped beside her, close enough to feel the heat of her skin in the cold air. "Then whose fight is it?" Before she could answer, the ground shook slightly beneath their feet. Dust rained down from the cracks above. Something was moving. Something big. Raynor's hand went to his gun, his body stiffening. The Amazon didn't move, but her muscles tensed, ready for battle even if her hands were empty. "We can't stay here," Raynor said. "That thing, whatever was chasing us, it's still out there." The Amazon turned to him, her expression unreadable. "And if we go back up, you think I'll still follow your orders?" Raynor's grip tightened on his gun. "You don't have a choice." Her smile was sharp, almost playful. "There's always a choice." Before Raynor could reply, a low, metallic grinding sound echoed from deeper within the chamber. The air grew colder. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage, dark and twisting. The Amazon stepped toward it, her bare feet silent against the smooth stone floor. Raynor hesitated. "You think it's safe?" "No," she said without turning. "But it's better than waiting." Raynor followed her into the dark passage, his helmet light flickering weakly ahead of them. The walls were covered in more carvings, but these were different, sharper, more violent. They showed battles not just between aliens, but between humans and Amazons too, fighting each other even while monsters attacked from all sides. "Your people and mine," Raynor said, his voice low. "Always enemies." The Amazon glanced back at him, her eyes unreadable. Maybe that was the plan. Raynor frowned. What plan? But the Amazon said nothing. She kept walking, her back straight, her step steady. Even with a collar around her neck and no weapon in her hand, she moved like someone who feared nothing. They walked in silence for several minutes, the tunnel twisting deeper underground. The air grew colder, the stone walls slick with moisture. Every step echoed back at them, making it sound like something followed just out of sight. "Where were you going before I caught you?" Raynor asked suddenly, his voice loud in the narrow space. The Amazon didn't stop walking. "Away." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get." Raynor's jaw tightened. "You really enjoy making my life harder, don't you?" Finally, the Amazon stopped. She turned, her face close to his in the dim light. "If I wanted to make your life harder, human, you wouldn't still be breathing." Raynor held her gaze, his own anger rising to match hers. "You're my prisoner." Her smile was cold. "And you're mine." Before Raynor could answer, the ground shifted again beneath their feet. A low growl echoed from behind them, the sound of something massive crawling into the tunnel. "Move," Raynor said, grabbing her arm and pulling her forward. She didn't resist, for once, and they ran together, deeper into the passage. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber, the floor covered in broken weapons, rusted and ancient. Some were Amazonian, others human. "We've been here before," Raynor whispered. The Amazon's expression softened for just a moment. "Maybe we never left." The growl grew closer, shaking the walls around them. A single claw, long and curved, covered in black slime, reached through the passage behind them. Raynor raised his gun, knowing it was almost out of power. The Amazon stepped beside him, empty-handed, but just as ready. Enemies, standing together. Whatever hunted them didn't care who they were. Human, Amazon. It wanted them both dead. Raynor aimed. The Amazon raised her fists. For a moment, there was only silence. Then they fought. The lost truth. The tunnel silence was broken only by the sound of footsteps. One set heavy, human boots grinding against wet stone, and one set light, bare feet barely making the sound. The faint blue glow from Raynor's helmet flickered weakly, casting short shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. Raynor's heart still pounded from the fight. The creature, or whatever it was, had stopped chasing them, at least for now. But the fear stayed in his chest, heavy like armor he couldn't take off. Beside him, the Amazon walked with the same unshaken calm she always carried, her dark eyes watching the tunnel ahead, her body moving like a blade waiting to strike. They hadn't spoken for a long time. Raynor's throat was dry, but his mind was louder than his thirst. The carvings on the walls, the ancient weapons littered on the floor, they were not just random ruins. They meant something. Something bigger than his failed mission. Something older than their war. "This place," Raynor said at last, his voice low. "You've seen it before." The Amazon didn't look at him. "In stories." "Stories." Raynor frowned. "Amazons tell stories." The corner of her mouth curled into the faintest smile. Not warm, not soft, but sharp. "We tell stories of battle, of blood, of survival." Her fingers brushed the wall, tracing the shape of a human and an Amazon standing side by side. "And stories of things we were told to forget." Raynor stopped walking. Told to forget. By who? She stopped too, her head turned slightly, just enough for her eyes to meet his. In the dim light, those eyes looked less like the eyes of a warrior and more like the eyes of someone standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at something they couldn't see the bottom of. "By your people," she said. Raynor's hand tightened around his gun, but there was no threat in her voice, only cold fact. "That's not possible," he said. "Amazons and humans have been enemies for hundreds of years, since first contact." "That's what your leaders wanted you to believe," she said, "but the first contact was not a battle." Raynor shook his head. "That's a lie." The Amazon stepped closer, even covered in dirt and dried blood, even with the metal collar humming around her neck. She stood tall, taller than him, her presence like a blade resting on his throat. "Then why are there human weapons in this place?" she asked. "Why do your symbols and mine share the same walls? Why does this ruin, on an Amazon world, speak in your language?" Raynor opened his mouth, but no words came out. His training, his orders, his belief, none of it could explain what he was seeing. He looked at the carvings again. They showed battles, humans and Amazons fighting not each other, but something else. Creatures with too many limbs, too many eyes. Creatures that crawled from cracks in the earth and holes in the sky. "They fought together," Raynor said quietly. "Your people and mine." The Amazon nodded once. "Before the lies. Before your leaders made sure we would always hate each other." Raynor turned to her. "Why? Why would they do that?" The Amazon's gaze didn't soften. "Because they were afraid." "Afraid of what?" he asked. She stepped past him, walking toward a section of the wall where a new carving appeared, different from the others. It showed a massive ship, not human, not Amazon, something older, something ancient. "Afraid of the truth," she said, "that we were always meant to stand together." Raynor followed her gaze. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Dark, insect-like, with sharp edges and twisted shapes that made his stomach twist just looking at it. "What is it?" Raynor asked. The Amazon's voice was quiet now, almost too soft for him to hear. "The enemy." Raynor frowned. "The Varnax." The Amazon shook her head slowly. "Older than them. Worse than them." She turned to face him fully. "Your leaders knew. So did ours. But instead of telling the truth, they made us enemies. Easier to control. Easier to weaken." Raynor felt cold, even in the heavy air. The war he was born into, the war that killed his friends, the war that had brought him to this cursed planet, was all a lie. He felt like the ground was falling out from under him. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. The Amazon took a slow step forward, her dark eyes locking onto his. "Because you spared me." Her voice was quiet, but strong. "Because you asked questions instead of pulling the trigger. And because whatever is coming next, neither of us will survive alone." Raynor's fingers loosened on his gun. The collar on her neck still glowed, a reminder of their uneven power. But in this place, surrounded by the truth buried under centuries of lies, the collar felt smaller, almost meaningless. A distant growl echoed from the tunnel behind them. The creature was still hunting. The Amazon turned toward the sound, her muscles tensing. Raynor raised his gun, though the charge was nearly empty. "We still have a long way to go," he said. She nodded once, her expression unreadable. Together. Raynor didn't know if he could trust her, not fully. But for now, it didn't matter. The walls around them had already told the truth. Enemies once, allies before that. And now something else entirely. As they walked deeper into the ruins, side by side, the flickering light of Raynor's helmet shone over one last carving. A human hand and an Amazon hand, clasped together, standing on the bones of the ancient enemy. The past was not gone. It had only been waiting. And now it was awake. The final enemy. The deeper they walked into the ancient ruins, the more the walls changed. The carvings grew sharper, more chaotic. They showed not just battles, but worlds breaking apart, skies torn open, rivers turning black, and mountains collapsing into dust. Raynor's helmet light flickered again, the battery almost dead. Every few steps, the beam cut out completely, leaving them in near total darkness, only the faint glow from the Amazon's collar lighting the way. Yet her steps never slowed. "You know where we're going," Raynor said. "I don't," the Amazon replied without looking at him. "But my blood does." Raynor's brow furrowed. "Your blood?" The Amazon placed her hand flat against a section of the wall, and for the first time, the carvings responded. A soft, golden glow spread out from her fingertips, flowing through the cracks like liquid light, tracing patterns hidden beneath the surface. Slowly, a door formed, sliding open with a deep, ancient groan. "My ancestors were here," she said softly. "A long time ago. Something inside me remembers." Raynor stared at her, both impressed and uneasy. "So what does your blood say is waiting for us in there?" The Amazon's eyes met his. "Nothing good." They stepped inside. The chamber beyond was enormous, far larger than the tight tunnels they had passed through. Its ceiling stretched so high they couldn't see the top, disappearing into shadows. The walls were lined with rows of strange, black pods, each one covered in layers of dust and web-like growths. Raynor stepped closer to one of the pods. His gloved hand brushed against the surface, wiping away years of grime. Inside, something moved. He stepped back fast, gun raised. The shape inside the pod was humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its skin stretched too tight over sharp bones. Its face was a twisted copy of something once human, but its mouth was full of jagged teeth, and its eyes were black holes. The Amazon stood beside him, her face hard. "Varnax," she said. Raynor shook his head. "No, this is something older." The pod's surface pulsed once, as if the thing inside could feel them watching. Raynor swallowed hard. "We need to keep moving." They crossed the chamber, but the Amazon's fingers brushed the pods as they passed, like she was trying to remember something lost in her blood. The deeper they went, the more the walls changed again. The carvings were no longer battles. They were warnings. The ancient enemy wasn't just an alien species. It was a force, something that spread like a disease, consuming worlds, twisting life into something unnatural. Humans and Amazons had fought it together, long before they ever fought each other. But they hadn't won. At the center of the chamber stood a tall, narrow obelisk made from the same black stone as the pods. Its surface was smooth, except for a single carving. A human hand and an Amazon hand, side by side, both reaching toward the same symbol, a circle broken in two. The Amazon's breath caught slightly when she saw it. Raynor noticed. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It's a bond," she said, "an oath between my ancestors and yours." Raynor took a slow step forward. "An oath to do what?" The Amazon didn't answer. Her fingers brushed the broken circle, and the obelisk responded. A soft hum filled the air, and the walls around them came to life, carvings shifting and moving, replaying ancient memories. They saw human soldiers standing beside Amazon warriors, fighting together against a tide of twisted creatures pouring from the sky and the ground. They saw whole cities swallowed in darkness. They saw human leaders meeting in secret with Amazon queens, forging a pact, not of peace, but of survival. Then they saw the betrayal. Human ships turning on Amazon outposts, Amazon warbands ambushing human colonies, leaders on both sides whispering lies, fanning the flames of hate, and behind it all, the shadow of the ancient enemy, watching, waiting. Raynor stepped back from the wall, his heart pounding. "We were never meant to fight each other," he said softly. "They made us enemies so we forget the real threat." The Amazon's face was unreadable. And now, the real threat is awake. A sharp screech echoed through the chamber. Raynor spun, gun raised. One of the pods had split open. Something was crawling out, its limbs twitching, its jaw unhinged too wide. "Run," Raynor shouted. They bolted toward the far end of the chamber, but more pods were opening, one after another. The creatures spilled onto the floor, their twisted forms, half flesh, half metal, all hunger. Their eyes locked onto the fleeing human and Amazon, and they gave chase. Raynor's gun barked, blue bolts of energy slamming into the nearest creature, but the blasts only slowed it down. The Amazon moved like flowing water, kicking off walls, grabbing rusted spears from the ground, and driving them through the monsters' throats. Even without her weapons, she was deadly. But there were too many. Raynor stumbled as a claw caught his shoulder, spinning him hard into the wall. Pain burst through his ribs, but the Amazon was there, her hand grabbing his arm, pulling him back to his feet. "Keep moving," she ordered. Together they ran, but the tunnel ahead was already closing. The ancient ruin, sensing the threat, was sealing itself shut, trying to contain the nightmare inside. Raynor's mind raced. "We're not going to make it." The Amazon yanked a chain from her wrist, a small silver token shaped like the broken circle from the obelisk. She shoved it into a slot on the wall, and the door froze halfway, leaving just enough space for them to slip through. They dove through the gap, crashing onto the ground on the other side. Just as the door slammed shut, muffled screeches echoed from the other side, but the door held. Raynor lay on his back, gasping for air. The Amazon sat beside him, her own breath coming faster than usual. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Raynor broke the silence. What the hell were those things? The Amazon's voice was quiet, but certain. "The first ones." Raynor's stomach twisted. "You mean?" She nodded. "The enemy that started it all." Raynor closed his eyes for a moment, trying to process it. Everything he thought he knew about this war, this planet, even her, all of it was a lie built on top of a buried truth. A truth that had just woken up. "We can't fight this alone," Raynor said softly. The Amazon's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, not as a prisoner touching her captor, but as something else. "No," she agreed. "We can't." Together, they stood. Behind them, the ancient door stood silent, but they knew the battle was far from over. It had only just begun. Love and war. The sky above the jungle had turned blood red, washed in the light of a dying sun. The air felt heavier, charged with something unnatural, as if the planet itself could feel the awakening deep below its surface. Every step Raynor took felt like walking through unseen hands, pulling him back, whispering that it was already too late. The Amazon walked beside him, her skin streaked with dirt and dried blood, her bronze body moving with the grace of a wild beast. She had no weapon in her hand, but she didn't need one. Her body itself was a weapon, honed through years of war and survival. Even the collar around her neck seemed meaningless now, like a broken chain pretending to hold back a storm. They moved together in silence, both listening to the distant sounds, low, haunting cries echoing through the trees, reminding them that the ancient enemy was awake and hunting. Raynor's body ached with every step, his muscles screaming, his ribs throbbing from the last fight. Every breath tasted like rusted metal and old fear. But the Amazon, she walked as if pain was just another part of her skin. Even injured, even hunted, she didn't slow. "Do Amazons feel pain?" Raynor asked suddenly, his voice low. The Amazon didn't look at him. "Pain is a voice," she said. "We learn to ignore it." Raynor smirked, though it hurt to do it. "You sound like my old drill sergeant." The Amazon glanced at him, just for a moment, and something passed between them. Not a smile, not exactly. Something softer, hidden deep under layers of pride and scars. They reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a wide valley, the ground split by deep cracks where strange blue light pulsed from underground. The air shimmered above the cracks, twisting like heat waves, but the energy felt cold. Raynor sat down heavily, letting out a slow breath. His armor was half broken, the edges burned and bent. His weapon hung limp in his hand, barely charged. The Amazon stood near the edge, her hair moving slightly in the breeze. She was silent, but her eyes scanned the horizon, always searching. "Why do you stay?" Raynor asked. The Amazon didn't turn. "I have nowhere else to go." "You could have killed me by now," he said, leaning back on his elbows. "Collar or no collar." The Amazon's jaw tightened. "Maybe." Raynor watched her, the way her shoulders tensed, the way her fingers curled slightly as if remembering old battles. "Why didn't you?" The Amazon turned slowly, her dark eyes locking onto his. For a moment, there was no answer, only silence stretched thin between them. "You didn't kill me either," she said softly. Raynor's mouth opened, but no words came out. There had been chances, so many chances, when she was on her knees after the first fight, when they were running from the ancient creatures, when they were lost together underground. Every time, he could have ended her. It would have been the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But he hadn't. The Amazon stepped closer, just enough for him to see the faint scar along her collarbone, a mark that had healed long ago but never disappeared. "We were enemies," she said. "But before that, maybe we were something else." Raynor swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" The Amazon knelt beside him, her voice quieter now. "The carvings, the old stories, they didn't just show battles. They showed bonds." "Bonds?" Raynor frowned. "Amazon warriors and human soldiers," she said, "fighting together, dying together, protecting each other." Raynor's breath caught in his chest. "Like partners." The Amazon shook her head. "More than that." Her fingers brushed his hand, only for a moment, but it felt like something ancient woke up in the air between them, something older than war, older than the lies that made them enemies. Raynor's throat was dry. "Is that why you didn't kill me?" The Amazon's expression was unreadable. "I don't know." Neither of them moved for a long moment. The jungle around them breathed, alive with alien sounds, but they only heard each other. "I don't even know your name," Raynor said. The Amazon blinked, surprised. "Lyra." Raynor let the name settle in his mind. Lyra. It felt strange. A name for someone who had been nothing but a threat when they first met. A name for someone who had saved his life more times than he could count. A name for someone who should have been his enemy, but now stood closer than any friend. Lyra's eyes softened just a little. "And you?" "Raynor," he said. "Captain Raynor." Lyra almost smiled. Almost. Before either of them could say more, a sharp alien howl echoed from somewhere deep in the jungle below. It was long, filled with hunger and rage. The sound of something hunting. Raynor stood quickly, his body screaming in protest. Lyra was already moving, scanning the trees below. "They found us," she said. Raynor raised his gun, though there was barely any charge left. "We can't outrun them forever." Lyra glanced at him. "We don't have to." Raynor frowned. "What does that mean?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. "If we fight together, like they did, like our ancestors, we have a chance." Raynor looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not an Amazon warrior, not a prisoner, not an enemy, but something else. A reflection of himself, scared and tired, but still standing. "We fight together," Raynor said softly, "or we die together." Lyra held his gaze. Together. They stood side by side at the edge of the cliff, the ancient sky burning red above them, the jungle trembling below as the final enemy drew closer. Once, they had been enemies. Now, they were something else. Not yet allies. Not yet lovers. But something new, something forged in war, sharpened by survival, and tested by the truth that had been hidden for far too long. And whatever came next, they would face it together. Wife of the Earthling. The sky above them cracked with light, a storm of alien energy spreading across the clouds like veins of blue fire. The jungle below trembled, leaves shaking, roots curling as if the planet itself feared what was coming. Raynor stood at the cliff's edge, his broken armor hanging off his body, his gun almost useless in his hand. But his grip was steady, his eyes sharp. The man who had once been just a soldier, following orders, was now something else, a survivor, a witness to ancient truths, and the last hope for his people. Beside him stood Lyra, the Amazon warrior who should have been his enemy. Her skin shone under the red sky, her muscles tense like a drawn bow. She was unarmed, yet there was nothing defenseless about her. She was born for battle, raised in war, and now, for the first time, she stood ready to fight with a human, not against one. The distant howls grew closer, dozens of them. Shadows moved between the trees, shapes crawling over rocks and through vines. Twisted creatures, part flesh, part metal, all hunger. The ancient enemy was awake. "We make our stand here," Raynor said. Lyra didn't look at him. Her gaze stayed locked on the tree line, her breathing calm. No running. No running. Lyra's lips curled into the faintest smile. Good. The first creature broke through the trees, a twisted beast with too many limbs, its skin torn and covered in patches of black metal. Its mouth was wide, full of jagged teeth, its eyes hollow and burning with blue light. It didn't belong to this world. It didn't belong anywhere. Raynor fired, the last of his gun's charge burning a hole straight through the creature's chest. It screamed, but didn't fall. Its broken body kept moving, crawling toward them, pulled by some dark hunger that no pain could stop. Lyra leaped forward, bare hands against metal claws. Her body moved with deadly grace, her arms locking around the creature's neck. With a sharp twist, the head snapped, and the creature fell limp. But there were more. Dozens poured from the jungle, crawling, running, leaping, ancient nightmares, woken after centuries of sleep. Raynor dropped his gun, useless now, and pulled a jagged metal spear from the ground. Its surface rusted with age, but still sharp enough to kill. They fought side by side, human and Amazon, the way their ancestors once had. Raynor's strikes were hard and fast, fueled by raw survival. Lyra's movements were like a dance, her body spinning, her hands and feet striking with deadly precision. For every creature they killed, two more came. "We can't hold them forever," Raynor shouted, sweat and blood running down his face. Lyra didn't answer. Her focus was pure, every muscle, every breath, every heartbeat tuned for this single purpose: survival. But in the chaos, she glanced at him, just once, and something passed between them. A silent promise, a bond older than war, a human and an Amazon, standing together, as it was meant to be. The ground trembled beneath their feet. From the largest crack in the earth, something rose, a shape so massive it blocked the sky, its form shifting between metal and flesh, its many eyes burning with cold, endless hunger. The first of the ancient enemy, the one that led the others, a creature not just of this world, but of worlds it had already destroyed. Raynor's heart pounded, but he didn't step back. Together. Lyra stood beside him, her bare shoulder brushing his. Together. They charged. Raynor's spear struck first, burying deep into the creature's leg, sparks flying as metal and bone cracked. Lyra climbed its side, her bare hands finding holds where no holds should exist, her strength pulling her upward like a storm wind. The creature roared, its voice shaking the sky. Its claws slashed at Raynor, but he rolled beneath them, his broken armor deflecting just enough to keep him alive. Lyra reached the creature's neck, her hands wrapping around a jagged spike of bone. With a fierce cry, she tore it loose, the crack echoing across the valley. The creature staggered, its balance lost. Raynor saw the opening and ran, every step burning his muscles, every breath heavy with pain. He leaped, grabbing hold of the same spike Lyra held, and together, they drove it down, deep into the creature's skull. The ancient enemy screamed, its body convulsing, and then, finally, it fell. Silence followed. The remaining creatures hesitated, their connection to the master severed. One by one, they collapsed, their bodies losing shape, turning into dust and broken metal. Raynor fell to his knees, every part of him shaking. Lyra stood beside him, breathing hard, her body streaked with blood. Some hers, some not. They had won. For now. The sky above began to clear, the strange red light fading, leaving only the soft alien glow of the twin moons. Raynor turned to Lyra, his voice rough. "We did it." Lyra looked down at him, her dark eyes softer than they had ever been. "We did." Raynor's hand reached out, fingers brushing her wrist where the collar had once been. The device had shattered during the fight, broken and meaningless. "You're free now," he said. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand resting on his chest, just above his heart. "I was free the moment you spared me." Raynor's breath caught. There were no more enemies here. No orders. No war. Just the two of them. Two survivors, bound by fate, by blood, by something neither of them could fully name. Lyra leaned closer, her forehead resting lightly against his. "I was your prisoner," she whispered, "but now I am your wife." Raynor's heart skipped, but the words didn't feel strange. They felt right, like something ancient had been waiting for this moment, for this bond to return. "You were never my prisoner," Raynor said softly. "You were always my equal." Lyra's hand slid into his, their fingers locking together. Human and Amazon. Two hands, one bond. The jungle was silent now, the danger past. But they both knew this was not the end. The ancient enemy was only the first piece of a war that was coming. A war they would face together. But for now, in this moment, they were not enemies. They were not just allies. They were something older, something deeper, a bond not forged in peace, but in survival, in blood, in the choice to trust. Lyra, the Amazon warrior. Raynor, the earthling soldier. And together, they would face whatever came next, not as enemies, not just as lovers, but as the first of something new. A human and his Amazon wife, standing side by side against the darkness. Forever.